We are back in the shop, and you can probably see lurking right here. Our loyal OBS Ford is in today for a few holiday upgrades. And as many of the longtime viewers know, have an absolute love for these OBS Fords. They are really what keeps the shop running, whether it's running around town picking up parts for the other projects or anything else to keep the shop up and running. This thing is on the road almost every single day, working behind the scenes to keep me and the shop and the channel operational. But being a 30-year-old truck, it's a little bit of a rolling restoration. I've only had this one about a year. Unfortunately, our previous one fell victim to Hurricane Helene. And so this is a rolling restoration, slowly going through and mechanically getting this thing properly sorted, and then equally cosmetically, slowly going through the truck and bringing it back to its former glory. And for today's video, we're gonna be giving the interior a little bit more love. Overall, not bad shape for 30 years old. However, the real reason for doing this, when we come in here, and it's a very common problem on the OBSs, you can see the odometer here is all distorted looking, and basically you can't read anything unless you put the lights on, and then it's very, very faint here. We are going to address this today. There is a repair you can do, and as it's going to be pulling the cluster out, we are going to address some of these problems in the truck as well. And basically taking a look at the dash bezel, someone had drilled a hole in here and there was a non-functional tack that was in here when I got the truck. I pulled all that old wiring out just because I didn't want it to risk causing electrical problems. That is very common when people just tap into the harness, and over time it causes issues. So I want to get this replaced as it was all loose, and this hole here, which aesthetically looked very junky. So we're going to get this thing replaced. We're going to get the dash cluster out. We are going to fix the LCD display back here, which will be awesome. And then also I did treat the truck to a new dash pad. As you can see, the Florida sun has not been kind over 30 years. So that's enough talking. Let's get in the truck and get this thing started. So we are going to start with step one. And this, like I said, is in pretty rough shape. The clips are already broken and stuff. You can see I kind of pulled the covers off here. So normally you'll have your little trim similar to this dash over here. You can pop those off, but actually this is all busted. You can just pull the headlight knob off. I think this is broken too, so I'll probably get a replacement. And then really, you're gonna wanna just basically pull this. Like I said, mine is in rough shape, but it'll unclip. And you can just pull this thing out. Equally broken on mine, the fuel tank switch. This is normally screwed in to the back here, but you can see the pegs are all broken on mine. So just be mindful. If yours is in good shape, you obviously want to be careful, get the screws out here, and or unplug the selector switch as replacement. So I'll put a link in the description below where you can get that. Next for me, I will kind of get this hardware out. It cooperates. There we go. So now this is out. I don't know if this is good or bad on my truck. The rear tank's broken, very common. That will be a future project. I do actually have videos on how to do this, but now I have the shop. So the first video I did this in a driveway. I am going to address the headlight switch. This is specific to my truck. You don't need to do this if you're doing the odometer. But I think basically the knob on this is busted because half the time when I turn my headlights on, the knob comes off, which is super frustrating. So I want to get that resolved at the same time. So it's got a little T-handle with a T20 on it. Yeah, that is what we needed for the headlight switch. So we'll get that out. And all I can say is I hope the screw on the other side is not that tight because the dashboard's damaged. I'm sure you OBS guys know how these can get all cracked up. There it goes. But we got this out, so hopefully now we can yeah, put a new knob on this as well. Next up, we have 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we should be able to access the instrument cluster. So I'm gonna get on with that now. All right, guys, well, a little breakthrough. Hiding in here is a little screw that needs to come out. So we're gonna see if we can get this out, and then I think it'll release basically this cable down here, and it'll allow us to get the instrument cluster to come out. As you can see in this close-up how gross this thing is. It's, well, it needs some love. So hopefully this does the trick, and you'll meet me back here if we're successful in removing the cluster. And to give you guys an idea of how small this little screw is, it's a 7/32 socket that I'm using, and it is really hidden in there. But this is one of them. And by undoing those screws, now the shift indicator stays put, and you can kind of see I've rolled the cluster back. So my goal here now is to basically unplug the cluster, and then we should be able to remove it. So gotta kind of just sneak back there and undo the couple plugs from the harness, and hopefully we should be good to go. All right, guys, well, we have it out. A little bit of a knuckle buster. Yeah, seriously. These clips, they kind of just squeeze in, but you kind of have to wrestle them to get them out. And obviously, being cautious of this, it's just brittle plastic as well. You don't want to risk breaking that in the process. But let's hop over to the bench and we can take a look at the cluster. Oh, by the way, yeah, this is all the dirt that we're going to be cleaning up all behind the dash as well. You can kind of see it up there in the back. We're going to get rid of as much of that as possible. And while we're in disassembly mode, let's get this broken, busted dash pad out. What I've done, I've dropped the glove compartment out. It's pretty easy. You just kind of squeeze right here, and then these little nubs will pop out of the dash here, and the whole glove compartment will roll forward, and then you can just unhook it off the bottom. So super easy there, and then you get access again to the back of the dash. But what's important to us is actually up under here. So I'll show you kind of what we're going for. And here's one of them, but basically all along the dash pad, we have these little, I believe they're 10mm nuts, and we want to get all of those undone and out. And the best goal, just go slow and steady with that. You know, like I said, the dash is kind of brittle, but if you go and get all those bolts out, then the dash pad will literally just lift out. All right, guys, well, dash teardown complete. As you can see, we have our work cut out for us. That came out relatively easily. A couple of these were loose, and you are able to kind of get your hand in there and access the ones behind the head unit without removing it. Obviously, if you do remove the head unit, it will probably be that much easier, but it did not seem to be necessary for me. Anyway, we're gonna leave this like it is for now. We're going to get over to the bench and focus on the instrument cluster. And that means more disassembly of the instrument cluster itself. We want to take it apart. We need to get to the odometer so we can do the work on that. And again, clean everything. As you saw, there's just thick layers of grime and dust, and I want to get this as good as new before we put it back in. Now we need to do some disassembly here, mainly because we got to get into this odometer. So step one, I'm actually gonna take the lens off because this thing is disgusting, tons of dirt and grime. So we're gonna get that off first. All right, and now we should, there we go, lift this off, and you can kind of see in the lighting there how gross that is. So we're gonna get this cleaned and polished up before we put it back. But for now, we'll set it aside. And now that gives us access to the actual instrument cluster itself. A little dusty in here, so we'll address that as well. But next step, there's a few more screws. You can kind of see them here that we want to get undone so we can get this kind of trim piece off as well. So with those two screws removed, we can just lift this off and again, set it aside for now. All right, and yeah, on the clusters here, basically the left and right side, they almost work as like a socket. So we just need to carefully kind of tease these up. There we go. And this will come out. If we turn it over so you guys can kind of see what we're working with, these are basically little electrical pins that plug into the board at the back. This isn't in bad shape, but we'll certainly give it a wipe down just to get this 30 years of dust off it. But for now, we're gonna set it aside. I think we're getting close on this one. There she goes. All right, this one's out. And then if I recall, the speedo should just lift out now. There we go. And for now, we can just set this aside as well. We might give it a quick clean, but we're just gonna be working on the speedo for the rest of today. This is where the fun begins. So we do actually have to disassemble this a little bit further because our goal is to access the film here on the odometer. So I think if we can turn this over here, like so, and certainly be as gentle as you can. You can see we have a couple little screws here, one here, I believe hold the board in. We're going to want to undo those. And then we equally have these two guys right here that we want to get out, and this will give us access to the LCD display that we want to repair. All right, so this is a T10, so we're getting smaller and smaller on the Torx. But now I should be able to carefully lift this board out, like so. And like I said, everything, don't put too much pressure on this. That's where your speedo needle is. All right, well, next up, let's give this thing a twist. She's out. I think this is just used for lighting up or backlighting the display, so we'll set that aside. And now, here's the culprit. And as you can see, we have a rather damaged screen here. I may actually undo this ribbon cable so we can just focus on the display itself. So if we flip this back over carefully, we can probably actually just rest it in place like so. It should come out. There she goes. Cool. So we can set this aside now. Honestly, you may not have had to take this board out after looking at this, but it definitely gave me good access, so I'll leave that to your discretion. But here we have the old display, and you can basically see the kind of polarizing screen on top. It's all bubbled up and damaged, so we are going to work on repairing that. All right, and so really what we want to do is get this film off. You can kind of see on my one, it's a little hard, hopefully it focuses, but there's a little edge here where it's kind of bubbled up. Oh, I thought I was gonna have to use a scraper, but it looks like we can just pull this off like so. And this is the old film that's basically delaminated and stopped us from being able to read the display. And now we're just left with some glue. So we're gonna have to clean this glue and residue off before we put the new piece back on. So what I'm using here, I just have a little bit of Goo Gone. I think that's pretty, on the scale of harshness, it's on the low side. I'm just wiping it on with a shop cloth just so it can kind of soak into the very old remaining adhesive. And then hopefully some of it just dissolves, and what's left I can use a little razor blade carefully and just kind of scrape that off in preparation to put the new polarizing film on. But you can kind of see as I roll the light over where the glue residue still is, and that's what we want to get off before putting a new piece on. All right, so we got the LCD display cleaned up pretty good. It is not perfect. This old glue is just very challenging to get off. I tried a few things, but I didn't want to get too aggressive. And then what we have here is a new polarized film, and it is stick-on, so we should be able to just peel the back off here, like so. And then we're gonna very carefully place this over the display. If I can do this. Like so. And there you have it. So we now have a new polarized layer on top of the display. And that should have us, once we're all plugged back in, with a legible odometer again. So now there's the fun part. We got to put this all back together. All right, guys, well, here's the finished product. So you can see the odometer here. Obviously, we'll have to test that in the truck. But really all I did, you saw I used a paintbrush just to lift all the dust off of the gauges in here. The black surround, I got all the dust off the bottom edge here, so it's nice and clean. And then the lens I just cleaned up as well, getting the dirt and dust off of it. It does have some light scratches and stuff, but like I said, the truck is not a show truck. I just want everything to be clean and functional. So next step, we're actually gonna get this in the truck. We have to get the little shift selector down in here. I'm just getting the hardware for that, and we'll be one step closer. I thought I'd talk about this. This is the Polarized Film. So this is what I bought. It came with 2 of these, and I just cut a section that was the right size for the odometer readout. And yeah, I think it was maybe $6, something like that. I'll leave a link for this in the description below so you can get this yourself, and it gives you plenty. I made a couple of mistakes cutting it out, and this is one, so I still have tons left if I ever had to do a job like this again. But it seems to have gone on well. You know, once we fire everything up, we'll know for sure, but it certainly looks a lot better. Anyway, let's get back over to the truck and see what we can do about getting the shift selector in. All right, well, I thought I'd do a little bit of a before and then we can do an after of just getting all this dust and grime out from behind the dash where I can reach. Not so bad up here, but admittedly, I think I cleaned this when I put the stereo in. So still a little bit, but nothing near as bad as some other parts of the dash. But probably the worst area behind where the instrument cluster is. I'm gonna do my best to get all of this out. And we can see down here, it's no better. All right, well, we'll get my favorite simple green out here and let's get to work. Next time you see this, it should be about as spotless as it can be. All right, so we are gonna work on getting the dash pad in. I'm gonna do that now so I can get the glove compartment back in, mainly because my glove box light is on and I don't want it to drain the battery. So we're gonna work on that now. Pretty straightforward, you saw me take it out. But yeah, we'll get this installed and it'll be one nice new clean piece back in the interior. And this is what we're working with. So the bottom one is the original. And then at the top, here's a new replacement. I got this from Complete Performance. And honestly, what you can really see here is, and maybe it's obvious, there's a lot of sun damage. So this is faded very significantly, and obviously to the point where this is split and cracked. So this is actually much closer to the original color of the interior. So just wanted to point out that's kind of the discrepancy in the colors here. Obviously, we got 30 years of sun damage on the interior. So anyway, this thing looks great. Hopefully it installs great. We can take a look at it here in a minute once it's in. Here we are back inside the cab. And as you can see, I've got 90% of all the dirt and dust off here. Same down here in this corner. I've used the little paintbrush trick again, just on the shift indicator as well. Really the goal there just to get all the dust and stuff out of here. I did reinstall the light switch, but you'll see that the knob has been removed. There's like a little quick release button on the back to pull that out. And I have right here a nice brand new one. It's just a Dorman product, but equally I'll leave a link in the description for anyone that might need one of these. But I thought, you know what, let's just put a brand new one in while we're doing it, so everything is nice and minty. So we're gonna kind of get the cluster rested in place here and try and get this shift indicator right here tucked up in the cluster. And then we have what I'm sure is gonna be a bit of a challenge to get these couple screws in, but then we'll be off to the races. All right, guys, well, it's resting back in place. It's just fiddly to do this. You definitely have to put the cluster in first before you plug the harness in. I found kind of tilting it like this and then going in so we can get up under this ledge is the best practice. And what I did with the shift indicator is that because it's on a cable, I just kind of pulled it out to the side here so it was out of the way. Once I got everything plugged in the back, then I was able to tilt this forward again and kind of swoop the shift indicator underneath. So everyone probably has their own methodology, but that's what worked for me. So now I have the fun task of putting the two little screws, one here and one here, and I'm sure it's gonna be entertaining. But the nice thing is, once we get that, it's job done with the cluster. All right, well, quick update. I just put the lower shroud back on, just a few screws under here, and then obviously the knob here for adjusting the column. So that's back on, but I think we're getting to the point where we're gonna have to put the dash surround on. So we will see if we can get that on next. I'm just gonna rest this here to start off with. Just wanna tuck this back here. And one thing that's important, plug this in. This is your fuel tank switch. Definitely don't wanna forget that. There she goes. There she goes. And certainly importantly, headlight switch, and that should just press in like so. Yep. Very carefully save these guys from the old factory bezel. I did this because the aftermarket bezel, this is very low quality, and so carefully peeling these off the factory one, you get that OEM look. So we just have to stick it over these holes over here. And just like that, it has that factory look again. So I am missing my little XLT trims here. We're gonna pop those on next. All right, guys, well, there you have it. The bezel is back on. I'm gonna hook the battery up. We're gonna test the cluster to make sure everything lights up. And most importantly, can we read the odometer? Just a little glimpse. You can see the LCD display lights up with the lights on. Obviously, I think if I flip the ignition on now too, we'll actually be able to read it. Yep. There you have it. So, huge success. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Looks good as new. All right, guys, well, I'm not gonna lie, I'm super pleased with how this turned out. In true low-tech garage fashion, a simple project is to fix the odometer turned into a major overhaul and mini restoration of the dash. But I tell you what, this thing is looking great. So let's go over and take a peek at the finished product. And here we have it. Brand new dash pad. Our new bezel over here. Everything looking factory fresh. All right, well, that's where we're gonna wrap the video for today. I hope you found this informative and enjoyed the video. You can definitely repair those LCD displays on your own. And like I said, the material was only $6. I will put a link in the description below for all the pieces I used in today's little mini restoration project. That's the dash pad, the bezel, any other little bits and pieces I use, so you can easily get them for your OBS as well. But like I said, I hope you found this informative. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I am on my way to 10,000 subscribers, and you are gonna help me get there. And with that, I'll see you on the next episode.